This is it. This is the guide you've been waiting for. I have done the 5 and 6 March Murder Ball lineup guides the last few days, and today we're going to talk about the 7 March Murder Ball that you can run in Rise of Kingdoms. There's all kinds of different combinations, and not necessarily everything is better than the rest. And it just depends on your playing style, the troop types you have, the commanders you have, the gear, all that different stuff. But we're going to go through it because we're going to give you all the different options no matter how your account is set up. So stick around as we dive right into it. Hey everybody, I'm your boy War Daddy Chatsky. I put out videos all the time, and if you enjoy the videos, please throw a thumbs up on it and like it. If you're not subscribed, consider doing so. It doesn't cost you anything, and it really helps out the channel. This particular guide is what everybody's kind of been waiting on, okay? I've gone through the 5 March Murder Ball and the 6 March Murder Ball stuff for your accounts. Now I'm going to talk about 7 March Murder Balls. Now, I am going to break this up to where you can skip through on the chapters and different things, because we're going to review some of the stuff we've had for 5 Marches and 6 Marches, and I'm going to explain some of the different things that we have. But this is all about field fighting, okay? I'm sorry, Siege players, I didn't put Siege in here. I'm not a Siege expert, but I'm an expert in fighting melee, and I'm an expert in fighting with 5, 6, and 7 Marches, so that's what I'm going to give you guys as far as the content today. So with that, let's go through it, and this is a review. Let's review just what we've done with our 5 Marches, okay? You can see this up here. I did these in different options. They're not necessarily better than the others. It's just different options for each amount of marches you're going to run. So on my 5 March option 1, this is what I like to run, okay? You're going to see Chen over there on the right. If you're running 1 Archer March, you can choose between either YSG or Zuge. There's benefits to both. YSG with Chen, I think, is the best March in the game. It is the most powerful. It does the most damage. It's tanky. It does everything. Now, Zuge is really good too, so it's like right there. It's almost as good, but Zuge also provides a utility because of his AoE damage mitigation. All the targets he hits do 15% less damage for 3 seconds, which is really good. But this is just a straight up 2-2-1 setup. Huo Joan, Arthur with Philip, BQ Luce, Ragnar CPO, and then your Archer March. That is an easy way to do it. And a lot of this is very common. One of the most common setups when it comes to a 5 March setup. You go to option 2, it's a 1-2-2. If you're going to run 1 Cav March, Huo Arthur is the best March you can run. Super powerful, rapid fire, a lot of damage, AoE damage from Arthur, and Arthur's a skill damage commander when you put him behind Huo. And you also have the same 2 infantry marches. Anytime you run 2 infantry marches, this is what you're running. Ragnar CPO and BQ Luce. Now, if you're running 2 Archer Marches, you can set it up like this. In my opinion, you can even have Herman in there for Zuge, but I put Philip in there. I think it does better, and it also allows Chen to be with YSG. You're going to see Philip in every one of my murder balls. Philip is so valuable. I don't care where you have to put him, but he is going to be in these murder balls no matter what. But you can also put Herman there and put Philip somewhere else if you'd like, but that's how I like to run a 1-2-2 setup. On a 2-1-2 setup with 2 cavalry, 1 infantry, and 2 archers, you're going to bench Ragnar CPO, and if you don't have Ragnar, this is probably one of the things you run. You're running BQ with Luce, Huo Joan, Arthur with Philip, Zuge with Herman, and then Chen YSG. Very easy to do. These 5 March Murder Balls are easy to do, okay? Now, if you're going to go with more of a 3 Cav setup, and I've run this before, okay? You're going to see something in here that's a Joan Philip. I've talked about this. You can see it in my previous video. Joan Philip is surprisingly amazing. And the reason why is because Joan does a second proc, right? And then Philip has a chance to do a second proc. So what happens is from like turn 6 or 7, whenever they fire off first, you literally have an opportunity to get 7 active skills in a 13-second period. That's why that thing works. It's just, you're running active skills like crazy. Running active skills is the most important thing in this game. That's why rage is the most important thing in this game. That's when you get the most benefit from your commanders, and that's why I love Joan with Philip. I love running Huo Belly. If you've never run it and you're running multiple Cav marches, try it out. It is a March killer. Plus, you're putting the Belisarius 12% all damage debuff on the target for all your marches. And I love running Huo Belly. It's only single target, but it is a march killer. So much damage, rapid fire, and all that. I also have William running with Arthur. You're going to see William a lot in this. And let me give you a little quick guide to William when it comes to this, okay? When William is in your lineup, he is like a Chen YSG counter, if you will, because whatever he hits for 3 seconds, they cannot take any benefit from an increase in skill damage. Well, part of the reason why Chen YSG is so powerful is because of YSG's force skill, 50% more skill damage, and his museum buffs gives an additional 12%. This is a perpetual skill damage bonus to Chen, okay? And so Chen only does skill damage. That's like an all damage bonus. So if you're running William, okay, when you run William, that really nerfs the Chen YSG effectiveness. So he becomes a little bit more valuable. He still doesn't do enough damage on his main active skill, but the rest of his kit is really busted. It always has been. And so that's why you're going to see that Arthur William a lot. And then with just one infantry march, BQ Wallace, and one archer march, you can choose either YSG or Zuge. And so here's my next setup for option 5. This is a 1-3-1 setup. If you infantry players and simps, you love to run this stuff. You run Huo Arthur as your 1 Cav, Ragnar CPO. Now you bring in William Wallace, you put him behind BQ, and you run Luce with Philip. Luce with Philip is amazing. Philip has one of the best instant procs in the game. I think it's the best one because it's an AoE instant proc that he does. And when he does it, he does 800 factor on 3 targets, and then he reduces their rage by 100. This is phenomenal. This is great. Well, when you pair him with Luce, the reason why that is so good is because of Luce's his expertise, where he's literally doing extra basic attacks. So anybody you put with him, that's why him and Alex worked so well for so long and still does today, because anybody you put him with, they're gonna proc much quicker on some of those instant procs. And so that's why I love running the Luce with Philip. Also, you have your 1 archer march, and that's a pretty easy setup of a 1-3-1. Now, if you're gonna run 3 archers, you archer gang, you crazy guys, you're gonna run the best cav march you can run, the best infantry march you're gonna run, you got those there. Then you're gonna run YSG with Chen, you're gonna be able to put Philip with Zuge, and then you run the Ash Herman. Ash Herman, very good, a lot of AoE, a lot of damage, even though Ash is a rally commander, he's been one of the better field commanders in the game for a while. That's how you run a 1-1-3 setup. Okay, and then we kind of go into our 6 march lineups. Now this is where it gets to be a lot of fun, because we're going to have some fun different combinations that aren't necessarily suggested or aren't necessarily something I would recommend, but we just have a lot of fun with that. You're going to see it for the 6 march, and then you're going to see my psycho marches for 7 marches when we start having some fun with that. But this is an easy 2-2-2. It is Huo Joan, we've seen that. Arthur William, great. The best 2 infantry marches you can see there. Then Chen YSG and Zuge with Philip. Now, if you'd rather run Philip with Arthur and Herman with Zuge, then it looks like this. You just switch those 2. So that's option 2 on a 2-2-2 setup. Now you go into 3-2-1 with 3 calves. That's how you set it up. Love the Huo Belly. Love the Joan with Philip. Love Arthur with William. Now I have an Attila factor down here. For those of you rally commanders and people who like running Attila, you could easily run Attila with Philip and then put Joan back over with Huo. You could run Attila Burt and completely put Joan back over here with Huo and put Philip with Arthur. You can do a couple of different things when it comes to the Attila factor. You'll notice, cap players, and this is what people think it's like blasphemy, Nevsky is not in here. Nevsky's old, guys. I've got more kills on Nevsky than anybody, and I don't run him anymore. He just doesn't do enough. It's single target, doesn't do enough damage. He does that defense reduction, but that doesn't matter. I mean, it's just, that's the time to lay Nevsky to rest. The only time you're going to see him in this whole list is when I get to 7 marches and I run a 5 march Psycho Cav setup. So there is your 3-2-1 with your 6 marches, okay? You come to a 2-3-1 situation where you're running these 2 calves that I think are the best. Then you pull that Luce Philip, Ragnar CPO, BQ and Wallace, and Chen with either YSG or either YSG or Zuge. And so that's how you run your 2-3-1 setup. Very common. A lot of infantry players out there that like to run this. Then you go a 1-3-2 setup, and that's with your best Cav March. If you're just running a single March, Huo Arthur. Then you've got Ragnar CPO, same thing. Luce with Philip, BQ with Wallace, and then Chen YSG, and then you bring in Herman and you run him with Zuge. So that's how you can do a 1-3-2 setup. All right, and so you go into option 6, a 1-2-3 setup. One Cav March, that's it. 2 infantry marches, easy. And then you have your 3 archer lineup that we've seen in the past. Zuge with Philip, Chen with YSG, and Ash with Herman. And then I do something kind of cool here as we go through one more on a 2-1-3 setup, same type of deal. It's pretty simple and easy. These are the best marches you could run in this kind of setup, and you'll see that with these 3 archer setups, it's going to be the same 3 archers every time. You got to put Philip, if you're going to run 3 archers, you got to put Philip with the archers, run them with Zuge, move Herman to Ash, and you're cooking, okay? And then we get into a Cav Psycho situation. This is 4 Cav marches. All right, you could run this a couple of different ways, but I like to run Bert behind Attila. Okay, I know it sounds crazy, but just trust me. I'm gonna be doing all kinds of videos on how combo commanders behind Attila are wrecking the field. If Arthur was a combo commander as a secondary instead of a skill damage commander, I'd put Arthur behind Attila in a heartbeat. The main reason why is because Attila does so much enhancing of normal damage. Normal damage enhances your combo and smite damage. This is one of the best active skill buffs in the game for your March. 30% normal damage for 4 seconds. It's wild what this thing does. That's why in these artifact KVKs, Attila Gorgo's amazing, Attila CPO Emilianus is amazing for the garrisons and the rallies. But for me in field, I've always put Luce behind Attila. It's crazy. It has always hands down been my best March. This past KVK, I used Luce with BQ and I put CJ behind Attila, and it was wrecking everything. And so by that theory that you put a smite damage commander behind Attila, it's going to be the same for combo. Okay, and Bert does crazy stuff with his kit. He doesn't quite do enough damage, and I think that's the biggest issue we all have with Bert. And the damage he does do, Attila will enhance that, but he does so much rage reduction and cool little things here, and he's tanky and it helps out Attila. I mean, it is a good combination. We're testing it now. Staffer, one of my 300 members, is running that in his KVK, and it's really working well, and we'll have more videos on that and what these combo commanders can do behind Attila. So that's kind of my Psycho setup for Cavs with 4 Cavs, and then you run your best infantry and best archer march with that. So that's kind of my 5 March murder ball and 6 March murder ball, and this is my last one for 6 marches before we get into 7 marches. Okay, this is a smite combo Psycho situation. I don't necessarily suggest this, but what you're going to see here is every commander or every march in here is either doing big smite or big combo, or is enhancing the smite in the combo. And you're going to see Arthur with Bertrand. It's not necessarily the best, but really, really good if you're focusing just combo. You're going to see Attila with Takeda. The reason why you bring Takeda in here is the same reason why you run counter rallies with Takeda. He puts the burn effect where the target takes 50% more normal damage. Well, that is enhanced with smite and combo. So you run Attila Takeda. I know it sounds crazy in 2025. Then Luce Alex, great march to run. Alex does the debuff on taking more damage with enemy targets. It's still one of the best debuffs in the game. Then you run BQ Philip, and so that is doing massive smite damage while also enhancing your damage. And then you bring CJ in. Let's go with William Wallace, and that's a full smite march there. And you're going to see Chen, because Chen is so powerful. You got to put him in there. But then Shajar comes in, and the reason why Shajar comes in this weird smite combo setup is Shajar. Hold on, let me find her here, because this kind of explains it. Shajar, as a secondary, is doing massive healing. So there's massive sustain and tankiness when it comes to Chen Shajar. But her expertise gives 20% more normal damage for 3 seconds to you and 2 other marches that you have, which is great. I mean, that's like all damage for all these other marches that are doing Smite or combo. So that is a crazy Smite combo build. We thought we'd have a lot of fun with that and give you something a little bit unique. As we get more combo commanders and more Smite commanders, this will be more of a thing where people will go away from skill damage if they don't run a bunch of archers, and they'll go with Smite and combo, and they'll just try to enhance that. So that gives you an idea of how we run those 5 and 6 marches. There's your review. Now let's talk about 7 marches. This is where it gets crazy. This is where it gets to be a lot of fun. We got a lot of things to go through here. And so if you've skipped to this part of the video, this is what you wanted to see. We're gonna go with 7 marches. We're gonna go with an easy 3-2-2 setup, okay? This is where I've got Huo with Belly, and you guys all know I love Huo Belly. And listen, Cav players, if you've never run it, see what it does. It always trades positive, it does massive damage, and it's a March killer. Okay, it's not gonna do a bunch of AoE stuff, but it's gonna hammer the march that it's hitting. Arthur William, we talked about the viability of William and what he does to mitigate skill damage bonuses of the targets he's hitting with his AoE. William's phenomenal, is great. And then I've got the Joan Phillip. Love the Joan Phillip. I was not a believer in it. I thought that too many active skills would delay the rage requirement and rage cycle. But if you're delaying the rage cycle because you're running so many active skills, that's a good problem. That is a champagne problem if I've ever seen one. Okay, so that's your 3 Cav lineup. Now I did put a caveat in here. If you want to run Nevsky with Joan, you can do that. You Nevsky simps out there that think it's blasphemy to run 3 Cavs without Nevsky, there you go. That's an option. And then also I've got the Attila option with Phillip if you want to run Attila in a 3 Cav setup. Then you have the 2 infantry marches that we've talked about. Doesn't get any better. Those are the best 2 to run. And then you have the 2 archer marches without Phillip. Those are the best 2 to run. Chen with YSG, Zuge with Herman. Okay, and let's go to the next one. This gives us a 3-3-1 setup. This is really common for players who don't run a lot of archers. Okay, it's the same setup for the cavalry, but now you bring in Wallace and you bring in CJ. The reason why is because when we tested this out, CJ with BQ and Wallace with Luce performs better than putting Wallace behind BQ and running Alex with Luce. That doesn't mean you can't do it that way, but what we have found is that CJ in the murder ball performs better than Alex. It just does. When you're running 2 Smite marches, that's how it works. CJ's a really good commander. Got a cool instant proc. He does not quite enough damage, but he does enough to where he's gonna get carried. And BQ's gonna carry anybody he's with. And so this is the best setup, will get you better results than running BQ, Wallace, and Luce with Alex. So I like CJ, that's my recommendation for 3 infantry there when it comes to a 3 Cav, 3 infantry, 1 archer setup, okay? And then the archer march obviously is Chen either with YSG or Zuge, however you want to run that. So now it's a 3-1-3 setup, okay? Very rare. Nobody has 3 Cavs and 3 archers they run in a 7 march murder ball, but this is how I would set it up. Because now we're gonna move the Phillip over to the archers. It changes our cavalry. You're gonna just go with an easy Nevsky Joan, okay? So Huo and Belly, Arthur William, Nevsky Joan. You're gonna run 1 infantry march. That's the best one to run. BQ Luce, second best march in the entire game. It's amazing. And then you run your 3 archer setup. Pretty simple. So now we go with a 2-3-2 setup. This is 3 infantry, okay? And since we're not running 3 Cavs, we can pull Phillip over to the infantry. So we're not having to run CJ and Alex and all that stuff. So you run your 2 Cavs, then you run your Luce with Phillip. We talked about this. Love Luce Phillip. Make Phillip proc his 4th skill more often with Luce. You put Wallace behind BQ. You run Ragnar CPO. That's your 3 infantry setup. Then you've got your 2 archer setup. So that is an easy way to run a 2-3-2 setup. Okay, now we're gonna go a 1-3-3 setup. This is rare. Very seldom do people just have 1 cavalry march, but some do. Okay, so we've got a Huo Arthur over there, best cavalry march you can run. You now have to pull the Phillip over to the archers, and then you can bring in Alex. That's an easy way to do that. Or just like we showed you before, you can run your Wallace with Luce and then bench your Alex and run CJ behind BQ. You can do it a couple of different ways if you want to. And then Ragnar CPO, that rounds out your infantry marches. So either way, you can do that with 3 infantry marches. And then your 3 Cavs stay the 3 Cavs that we've talked about pretty much the whole time, or the 3 archers stay the 3 archers we've talked about the whole time in this video. Chen YSG, Zuge with Phillip, Ash Herman. That's a great way to run 3 marches for Archer players. We're going to go into number 6. Option 6 gives us a 2-2-3 setup. Okay, easy. 2 cav marches, that's what you run. 2 infantry marches, that's what you run. You put the fill up with the archers, run those same 3 archer marches. So that's how you can run that. It makes it very, very simple and easy. Really hard to get better than that if you're running a 2-2-3 setup. Now, we're going to go into a 4 cav setup, okay? This is kind of common sometimes. But Huo, now you bring in Belly, Arthur with William. I love the Joan Phillip. And then I would do an Attila Bertrand. Not a lot of people have Bertrand. Not a lot of people have Arch for Attila, so they don't run that. In that case, you could run Nevsky Joan, and then you could put Philip over here and run them with Attila. You can do that a couple of different ways, but that's how I like to run my 4 cav setup, with a 4-2-1 situation, and then you run the 2 infantry and the Archer March that you want. Now here, this is a 4 infantry setup. Now this is what's crazy, okay? You have 2 calves, and then you have 4 infantry marches. You have to bring in Alex if you're running 4 infantry marches. Sasuke and some of the guys I know run 4 infantry marches. Luce, Alex, BQ with Philip, okay? And then Ragnar with CPO and Wallace with CJ. Wallace with CJ, you'll be surprised at how good that march is, especially with a good pincer set on it. It's really, really good. And so that's your 4 infantry setup. I have 4 sets of infantry gear, Chadsky. What do I run? This is what I would suggest you run. And then you have the 1 archer march. All right, now this is a 4 archer lineup. Oh my gosh, okay, what are we gonna do here? So 2 calves, 1 imp, that's pretty simple. Then we're gonna bring in Shajar, and we're going to bring in Tommy. And look how we're going to set this thing up. We're going to run Chen YSG. We're going to run Zuge with Philip. We're going to run Shajar with Ash, which is okay in the field. Not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. And Shajar primary does the damage. It's not quite healing as much. And then we've got Herman with Tommy. We're going to lay down the stacks. You're running more archer marches. You might as well enhance the skill damage you're doing. Herman does the poison stacks AoE. Tommy does the poison stacks on the target. That's an easy way in archer players to tell if you're gonna run 4 archer marches, this is what you want to run. Okay, so now it's time to get into our Psycho situation. I don't suggest you run this. I don't suggest you do this, but I get asked all the time, Chadsky, give me 5 cav marches. What do I do? So this is your 7 march lineup with a Psycho Cav setup. This is 5 cavalry marches, all right? It's really not that hard to do. You're just bringing in Justinian. Huo with Belly, great. Arthur with William, great. Joan Phillip, great. If you have Bertrand, you can run him behind Attila, or you can just run Attila Takeda in that sense. And then you bring in Justinian and you run Nevsky Justinian. It's single target. It's not necessarily the best field march, but it's a phenomenal swarming march. It's like one of the best swarming marches in the game, even to this day, with Nevsky and Justinian. And then you run your 1 infantry and your 1 archer setup, and you're good to go. Okay, now we're going to go to the next one. This is a Psycho infantry setup. You freak shows out there running 5 infantry. Are you crazy? Huo Arthur is what you're going to run for your calves. Then you're going to have to bring in Guan. All right, let's bring our boy back into this game. Let's dust him off. Let's get him off the shelf and bring him back in. BQ Phillip, got to run that. Luce with Alex, got to run that. And the Wallace CJ, got to run that. Then you break up your Ragnar and you run Guan CPO and Ragnar with Mehmed. Now people are like, Mehmed, what are you doing? Well, Mehmed just got his 3rd museum buff. And for people that don't understand, when it comes to Mehmed, where is my museum? It's around here somewhere. There it is. When it comes to Mehmed, he has his 3rd buff. Obviously, I haven't gotten it because I don't run it, but he's adding another 10% troop health. He's adding skill damage. He already has a skill in his skill set where he does 20% more skill damage perpetually. Now he does another 10%. That's 30% skill damage. And then you're adding 40% health. Oh my goodness. And so it makes it viable if you have to run, if you psychos out there that are running 5 infantry marches, that's how to do it. That is exactly how to do it. And so you run your 1 archer march to go along with that, and that's how you can run 5 infantry, okay? And so the next and last one we will do, I don't even want to think about this. A Psycho Archer setup with 5 Archer marches? Are you kidding me? Okay, the cavalry and infantry are easy with this, but what do? You're basically going to take the same setup with 4 Archer marches, and you're just going to add Boudica with Artemisia. Okay, Boudica with Artemisia works. It was a staple march that we used to run all the time. They have good synergies together. Boudica can't be silenced. That's one of her cool things that she does, or she has a high likelihood to shrug off any silence. Well, Artie silences herself. And so that was always good synergy with that. And so when it comes to the museum buffs, I can't remember when we go through some of this stuff, some of these commanders are getting buffs here and there, and every now and then they'll add another buff here and there. Well, Artie has got her museum buff. It's not great, okay, but it does give you 5% archer attack, and it makes it much more tanky. A 10-second skill damage reduction is really, really good for Artie, but obviously she's a garrison commander, not ideal in the field in 2025, especially in August of 2025, but if you're gonna do it, that's how you run the 5 Archer setup in a 7 March murder ball if you are just an absolute freak show psycho for archers. Okay, and so that's all the things that I have to do. It's a lot of fun to put that together, whether you're running with the 5 archers, a psycho setup with the infantry, a psycho setup with the calves, or you're just getting into normal different combinations. We will have all this, and I'm going to put it up on my Discord so you can easily go into those channels and see exactly. You can take those screenshots, you can send them out to your friends. Hey, this is what I'm running. And if you have any questions, join that Discord, y'all. I have an Ask Anything channel where you can go in and say, hey, these are the commanders I've got. This is the gear I've got. What should I run? And you're going to get great advice from some of the best players in the game. I've got some of the best, nerdiest, smart people in the game in my Discord, and we're all willing to help. That's what our community is all about. That's what I built it on. And we're willing to help anybody starting out in the game, anybody new to the game that's got an older account, doesn't matter. We will help you no matter what. So we'll put all this stuff up in our Discord and make sure that you guys understand it and see it. And just like we talked about, we love the community. If you enjoy this video, throw a thumbs up on it, okay? Pull the discussion down into the YouTube comments. I go in there all the time to help answer questions. And I know you Cav simps, the first thing I'm gonna hear is, oh my God, you're running 3 Cavs with Artenevsky. What is going on here? What year is this? Well, it's 2025. That's the year. And that's why we might not be doing it, but I'll engage with you down there in those YouTube comments. Whew, that's a long video and long-winded. Thanks for sticking with me. And we might do that about every quarter. I say every quarter, about every 3 or 4 months, I do a murder ball series. And the reason why I do it is because with new commanders coming into the game, new commanders being transformed into different types of commanders, whether it's like CJ and Bertrand being changed from skill damage to smite or skill damage to combo. I do all those different videos to give you an updated version of this is what you're running, this is how to do it. And so with that, hope everybody enjoyed it. Love everybody, love the community. Get involved in our community and our Discord and in our YouTube. And until next time, you guys have a great day, broski.